Welcome back to the channel, and yes, before you do not see a general aviation aircraft, of which is normally on this channel. Today, ladies and gentlemen, for your viewing pleasure, I bring to you the Orbx TBF Avenger torpedo bomber. So, things are a little bit different. Normally, I like to feature general aviation aircraft, but I couldn't just ignore this aircraft. I've had my eyes on this for a while through its development. This is the Orbx Avenger TBF Avenger torpedo bomber from World War II. And like I say, it's a little bit different than normal aircraft you'll see on this channel. Yes, I do feature World War II or military aircraft. Few and sparingly, I must admit, but I do feature them every now and again. And like I said, I just couldn't ignore this aircraft. When I knew that Orbx were coming out with this aircraft, I just had to get it in the simulator. Didn't know it was going to feature on the channel, but here we are. First video in the TBF Avenger. So, a little bit of history on this aircraft, in Orbx's view, I should say, before I go on to the actual aircraft in reality. So, this is a Orbx aircraft. Now, Orbx are known for scenery. Today in Flight Simulator, they have Orbx Central, I think it is, which is a collection of developers releasing aircraft, scenery, all sorts. It's a catalogue, an online catalogue for you to pick up various good deals. Noting, of course, let's see now, the Cows DA40. Yes, that previous aircraft from the previous video, yes, that's on Orbx as well. So if you want to purchase that from Orbx, feel free. But anyway, going back to the Avenger. Orbx Central have been around for quite a while now, and they do publish a lot of other developers' work and share them, and it gets other developers out there into the flight sim community. However, every now and again, Orbx do like to release aircraft themselves. Now, this one's a rare one, I must admit. I don't remember flying an Avenger in a flight simulator for quite a while. I know there probably was some freeware ones for FSX and FS 2004. But I do believe, if I remember correctly, MAMSIM, I mean, this is going back a good whole heap of years, but MAMSIM had, which was the Mid-Atlantic Aviation Museum, had, they were known for the B-25, and this is an FS 2004, I do believe. They released the Avenger, I want to say they did. Did Vertigo release the Avenger as well? Vertigo Studios? I can't remember, this is so many years ago. I can't remember what happened yesterday, let alone, oh, God knows, 10 plus years ago. But anyway, here we are, FS 2020 and 2024. We have the Avenger. So, like I say, this is a Orbx aircraft, and it's an absolute beauty. There is just, I mean, it's a warplane, so it is but ugly, but Orbx did an absolutely astonishing, just look at the reflections of this thing. Absolutely jaw-droppingly beautiful. I take my hat off. At least I would take my hat off. It's got Trackir mounted to it. But I would take my hat off to Orbx when they created this. It is a stunner of an aircraft here in the sim. It's very difficult to get reflections and the textures of the real aircraft transferred into the sim. Some manufacturers or developers manage to do it, some don't. Orbx have knocked it out of the park with this aircraft, the way it looks. It is just, I mean, even to the, as you can see, the wings are obviously folded, but just look at the mechanisms. And the undercarriage, I mean, the undercarriage on this thing is absolutely chunky. And then I suppose it does have to be, because it is a carrier-borne aircraft. Now, this aircraft is a copy of a real TBF Avenger. I presume it's based in America. And it was done, Orbx created this in cahoots even, with the original operator of this aircraft. So this is a one-to-one copy of, let's say, 441. I don't know off the top of my head. I had a chance to really do some research on the real TBF Avenger, of which this one is based off. But it is a copy of it. So you only get, unfortunately, one repaint. And it's this one. It's accurate, don't get me wrong. I don't know how many TBF Avengers are still there flying in the world, but it is a very accurate repaint to a TBF Avenger. But it is just absolutely stunning. And like I say, it is a copy of the version of which that flies in America. I don't know. I think it's got on the tail, is it, somewhere? It's got I don't know if that's the company that own it. Little Wings. Yeah, they're just sponsors by the look of it. I could be wrong. But yeah, it is a copy of that particular Avenger. Now, moving on to the actual specs of the real life Avenger, and I have to bring up Wikipedia on this one. So this is specifications for a TBF Avenger. So we have a crew of 3. So we have pilot, gunner, navigator. I believe the pilot would be the one who operates the weapons. So power plant, we have one, obviously, Wright R2600-8 Twin Cyclone. That's a mother humping great big engine there. We have a three-braided Hamilton Standard Constant Speed Propeller. Okay, so this is actually the Hamilton Standard Constant Speed Propeller, actually featured in quite a few warbirds. The TBF Avenger is a late-ish mid-war. I can't think I can find the first flight of this thing. So first flight was in the 7th of August 1941, so it was around early days of the war for the Americans, that is. I think its first combat missions, don't quote me on this, but its first combat missions was the Battle of Midway. I think it did feature in the Battle of Midway, but it went on to replace. It was actually brought in to replace the Douglas Devastator, I do believe it was called. Yes, Devastator. What a lovely name for an aircraft. However, it was tragic. Devastator was a torpedo bomber, a lot smaller, a lot thinner, a lot, I wouldn't say nimbler, but it wasn't the best thing for the Americans to go to war with for their torpedo bombing aircraft. And unfortunately, in the Battle of Midway, Devastator squadrons were no match for the Imperial Japanese Navy and the Zero fighter. So they were replaced very quickly with this, the TBF Avenger. So this aircraft was retired in the 60s. This thing actually was retired in the 60s as a warbird, and it flew to the 1960s. So anyway, going back to the specs. So we can do a maximum speed of 278 miles per hour. Again, it's not going to be a fast aircraft. A, it's not the most aerodynamic thing in the world, and B, it's a torpedo bomber. With a range of 905 miles. So it's got pretty good range. So armament, and by the way, I had to say this, it's a Microsoft Simulator product, so we don't have any deployable weapons. We don't have any showing weapons either, so we have no torpedo and no guns on this aircraft. But in the early days, it was fitted with one 30 cal nose-mounted machine gun, and later it was swapped to two 50 cal wing-mounted machine guns. So they'll probably be mounted. I don't know which version of the TBF this is. I would imagine it's a later model, so it would be fitted with the 50 cals in the wings. We also would have one 50 cal dorsal mounted machine gun, so that would be mounted into this turret here. Again, it's not in this aircraft. And we also have one 30 cal ventral mounted machine gun, so it actually had a machine gun, I do believe, just here. Again, not mounted in this aircraft. Obviously, the real aircraft of which this is from does not have weapons. I'm fairly certain of that. So, on the offensive ordnance, we could have 8 3.5-inch wing-mounted rockets. We could carry up to 2,000 pounds of bombs, or one 2,000-pound Mark 13 or Mark 13 torpedo, or a Mark 24 mine. Or we could also carry acoustic homing torpedoes. Yes, those things were vicious. I do believe they featured in World War II. So it's fairly big on a bomb bay. So it can carry a lot of weapons. Now, I do believe as well it featured as a COD aircraft towards the latter end of the war, probably into the Korean War as well, I would imagine. I'm sure I saw Avengers with COD, which is carrier on board delivery. It also did anti-submarine work, so it could carry depth bombs to take out submarines that had just dived. And basically, it was a workhorse of the United States Navy, a very successful torpedo bomber. So, moving on to the bit you actually want to see. You want to see me fly this thing. So, I'm going to take off. Now, I like to say, when it comes to warbirds, I do not like to talk over the warbird when it's flying. So, just a show of respect for warbird crews, no matter which country you come from. These aircraft have earned their stripes, and like I say, there's nothing I can say when this aircraft is started up. So I'd like to cover everything I can now. I will say the cockpit is beautiful. Very dark, very a little more complicated than the DA40, of which we were flying beforehand. But there is a nod to the 21st century. In fact, we have a GPS, a transponder, and an ADF. I think that is, if I remember correctly. I think is it an ADF? I can't remember. Bendix King. I've no idea. Don't use it personally, but yes, this is obviously, like I say, is a copy of a real TBF Avenger. So in reality, even though this is a warbird, you still have to have up-to-date navigational equipment. So we do have that here. So we don't need to fly with it, and you'll see this GPS is not the best in the world, but it is entirely functional. So this aircraft does have it. So yes, I will get on to starting this aircraft up, and I will shut up because, let's face it, it is better that you actually hear the aircraft. Oh yes, just before I want to say, there is a negative with this aircraft. Two negatives, in fact. One, amazingly, is the sounds. Internal sounds, very good, very believable. External sounds, not so. So if I do some external shots, you'll probably hear that it doesn't sound particularly what I would expect an R2800 twin cyclone, I think it was, to sound like. Internally, sounds brilliant. The other downside, when you get this, is the handling, the flight handling. It is twitchy. You will be trimming this aircraft out constantly through the whole entire flight. And if you pull your flaps up, or deploy your flaps, or pull your undercarriage up, or deploy your undercarriage, you will be really trimming this aircraft out. It is a twitchy little thing that it doesn't deserve to be. Now, there is, on flightsim.to, a config file update created by somebody else. Forgive me, I forgot his name, but he created a config file that tweaks the aircraft into something a little more realistic. So I am flying that version, not the version that comes out from Orbx itself. So that's available, that update is available freely on flightsim.to. Just put Avenger into the search engine and it'll come up. I think it was the first thing that came up. There was no repaints to this aircraft as of the last time I checked, because it's still quite early days. So anyway, now, finally, I will shut up and get this aircraft started. So, there we go. A flight in the brand spanking new Orbx Avenger. Now, it currently is retailing on Orbx's website for 28 Australian dollars. That translates to being $17 US, 16 euros, or 14 UK pounds. So, actually, for that price, I think it's actually really, really good. Yes, there is a few limitations. One, I think the sounds could be better. The sounds are good, the sounds are believable, especially from the inside of the cockpit. But externally, I think they could be better. I know back in the old FSX days and FS 2004 days, people came out with new sound packs, free sound packs for particular aircraft. And I'm not expecting this to happen with 2020 and 2024. I think it's kind of, there's a few people out there that release payware packs for sound, for upgrades sound-wise for aircraft. I'm not expecting Orbx to get that or another person to create that. It'd be lovely if they did. But I think there's more popping and banging with these kind of engines than what Orbx are actually put in their version. But it's not bad. I'd give it a 7 out of 10 for its audio. Price-wise, I think it's fantastic. £14 in the UK. I think it's actually really, really good. Yeah, okay, another negative. It doesn't come with any other repaints. Flightsim.to, I dare say there will be repaints available for it, steadily available as the time goes on. What I will say, and I've just brought this up on Orbx's website, Orbx Direct, which is where you can purchase it. I'll link down below to where you can purchase this, is the words that they use in their advertising of this aircraft, like a masterpiece of detail. I'm not saying it's not a masterpiece of detail. I think it's very detailed. It then goes in, fly like the pros. And the line that I particularly made me smirk was execute snap rolls and knife edge maneuvers like a seasoned pilot. It's a freaking torpedo bomber, for crying out loud. Snap rolls in an Avenger? I think if you rolled this aircraft, you would snap the wings. It's not aerobatic. Oh, I suppose technically it is aerobatic, but it should be a heavy torpedo bomber. Knife edge maneuvers? I suppose you could do a knife edge maneuver, a climbing knife edge, I suppose, technically. It will be short term. We're not talking knife edge like the F-16s do, for instance, where they fly down the entire length of a runway on the side of their airframe doing a knife edge pass. It's not that. It's a torpedo bomber, so that did make me chuckle, I must admit. So, if you have any questions or comments about the Avenger, please bang them below. If you want to see more content around the Avenger, do you want to see another video going into the details of the cockpit and the avionics and the light, so maybe can teach you what to look for in the cockpit? Because the cockpit is a little bit, well, it's accurate. It's a little bit more confusing if you're used to newer aircraft. Obviously, this is a 1940s aircraft. So yeah, let me know if you want to see another video featuring the TBF Avenger. I think it's a great aircraft. For the price point, I think it's absolutely fantastic. If you're interested in warbirds, I don't believe there's another Avenger on the flight simulator. So this is it. So if you're, like I say, interested in United States carrier-borne aviation from the 40s, here you go. We have the TBF Avenger from Orbx. So I will see you in a future Microsoft Flight Simulator video very, very soon.